I want you to picture a script for a rejected Cold War thriller. Just imagine you're a Hollywood producer in 1961, and this manuscript lands on your desk.
Okay.
It's got everything. Secret agents, forged letters from billionaires, poison wells, and plot twists that are just so over the top you'd probably say, come on, nobody is this villainous.
And nobody's this gullible. Right. It sounds like a B-movie, something you'd watch at a drive-in.
Exactly. I mean, there's a plot point where the bad guys try to convince the world that 67% of American pilots are psychoneurotic.
Right.
It's ridiculous. But here's the twist, and it's why we're here today. That script was actually real life.
It was very, very real.
We are looking at a stack of documents today that honestly feels like it shouldn't exist. It's a declassified CIA study from 1961. The title is Psywar by Forgery.
And it is not dry reading. This is a manual on how to weaponize a lie.
It really is. And it changes how you see that whole era. You know, when we think Cold War, we think missiles in Cuba, tanks in Berlin, hard power.
Sure, the nuclear brinkmanship.
But this study reveals a totally different battlefield. The weapon here wasn't a nuke. It was a typewriter.
A typewriter and a very insidious kind of creativity. We're talking about Psywar psychological warfare.
But not the kind we usually think of, like dropping leaflets from a plane.
No. This is much more subtle. The goal wasn't to blow things up. It was to make the West look like monsters. Or, at best, a bunch of dangerous incompetents.
Okay, so before we dive into the specific stories, and there are some truly wild ones, let's set the stage. Who are the players?
So we're looking at the period between 1957 and 1960. The main antagonist here is what the CIA called the Sino-Soviet Bloc.
So Russia and China.
Specifically, we're talking about the KGB, of course, but also, and this is important, a heavy involvement from the East German Intelligence Service, the HVA.
And they had a whole system for this, didn't they? It wasn't just, let's make something up.
Oh, it was a system, an assembly line for disinformation. They called it surfacing or laundering a lot.
Laundering, that's the perfect word for it.
It is. Because think about it. If the KGB just hands a fake document to the New York Times, the Times is going to check the source and throw it in the trash.
Of course.
So you have to wash it first, give it a clean history.
So walk us through that cycle. How does a lie go from a basement in Moscow to a headline in London?
Well, the pattern is remarkably consistent. Step 1, the forgery is created. We'll get to how they did that. Step 2, they plant the story in a small, obscure newspaper. A favorite was Neues Deutschland, the East German party paper.
Okay, but nobody in Washington is reading an East German paper for, unbiased news.
Not yet. That's just the first step. Step 3 is the critical one. They'd get a newspaper in a non-aligned country, somewhere like India or Indonesia, to pick up the story. The study mentions the Delhi Times a lot.
And once the Delhi Times prints it, it's now international news.
Exactly. And that's when the trap closes.
Okay.
Because then TAE, the Soviet news agency, picks it up. But TAE's isn't saying, here's a story from our friends in East Germany.
No, they're saying, look at this shocking report from the independent Delhi Times.
And from there, it just circles back to the West through the wire services. By the time a reader in Paris sees it, the original KGB source is buried under 3 layers of reporting.
It's a game of telephone, but they're rigging the message at every single step.
Precisely.
And there's one outlet you pointed out in the notes, Blitz in India, the Bombay Blitz.
Ah, yes. Blitz was special. It was a Soviet-controlled weekly, but it was incredibly strategic.
How so?
The Soviets knew 2 things. 1, the local Indian population actually believed it. And 2, Western intelligence agencies watched it like a hawk.
Why were they watching it?
Because they knew it was a Soviet conduit, so the KGB used that against them. If you wanted to surface a really wild story and make sure the CIA saw it, you put it in Blitz. It was a direct line to Western anxiety.
Speaking of anxiety, let's unpack one of these wild stories, the Frank B. Berry letter. This is case study 1, and the audacity is just staggering.
This is the psychoneurotic pilots campaign, a classic example of exploiting a very specific fear.
So the document is a forged letter, supposedly from Frank B. Berry, who was the Assistant Defense Secretary. It's addressed to the Secretary of Defense. And the claim, listen to this, it says 67.3% of all U.S. Air Force flight personnel were psychoneurotic.
Almost 70%. I mean, imagine that. 2 out of every 3 pilots.
And it gets worse. It says they're suffering from phobias, unaccountable animosity, and, my personal favorite, sexual excesses and perversions.
It sounds almost funny now, doesn't it? But you have to get inside the 1961 mindset. This was aimed squarely at the fear of the nuclear button.
Right. If you're living in Europe and you hear the guy flying a plane with an H-bomb over your head, might have a mental blackout.
That's terrifying. The narrative was a nuclear war won't start because of a political decision. It'll start because some unstable American pilot just snaps. It's the Dr. Strangelove scenario before the movie even existed.
But here's where it gets really interesting for me, the forensics. Because for all the fear they tried to create, the forgers made some really dumb mistakes.
Yeah, the tradecraft was sloppy. The CIA analysts just tore this letter apart. First, the terminology. The forgers used terms like internal zone and Air Force Command.
Which sound official enough to a civilian, I guess.
They do, and that's the trick. But they are simply not American military terms. It's the linguistic equivalent of a spy wearing a uniform with the medals pinned on the wrong side. A dead giveaway to an expert.
And then there was the geography mistake. They listed Patuxent River AFB in Maryland.
Right, and Patuxent River is a real place, but it's a naval air station. It belongs to the Navy. An Assistant Secretary of Defense would never, ever make that mistake.
And then we get to the hardware. The typewriter itself.
Ah, typewriter forensics. This was the DNA testing of its day. Every machine has a unique fingerprint, the wear on the keys, the alignment.
So what did they find?
They found the letter was a composite.
What does that mean, a composite?
It means the machine wasn't a standard off-the-shelf model. It was probably pieced together from parts of different machines, or it was some foreign model they didn't have in the U.S. government.
So, a Frankenstein typewriter.
Exactly. The Pentagon would be using pristine IBM electrics. This thing looked like it had been through a war.
So, you have a letter with the wrong terms, the wrong base names, typed on a Frankenstein machine. But did any of that matter?
And that's the tragic part. To the experts, it's an obvious fake. But to the public, reading about it in Blitz, they don't see the typewriter analysis. They just hear, American pilots are crazy. And the seed of doubt is planted.
The lie gets halfway around the world while the truth is still putting on its shoes.
That's it, precisely. And the correction never makes the front page.
Which brings us to our next case, which is maybe even more ambitious. The Rockefeller-Dulles correspondence.
Ah, the master plan forgery. If the pilot letter was a thriller, this one is the Bond villain monologue.
It really is. They forged a letter from Nelson Rockefeller to President Eisenhower. And the gist is basically Rockefeller laying out an evil plan to use economic aid to trick countries into military alliances so America can dominate the world.
It was designed to confirm the absolute worst suspicions of every non-aligned nation. See, we told you U.S. aid was a trap.
But again, the linguistics. They made a mistake. There's a phrase in the letter the CIA linguists flagged immediately. The hooked fish needs no bait.
The hooked fish needs no bait. I mean, it's so poetic, isn't it? It's something a villain would say while stroking a white cat.
It is, but would Nelson Rockefeller, an American billionaire, actually say that?
Absolutely not, and that was the catch. The linguists identified it as a very clumsy, literal translation of a German idiom. Der geernte Fisch braucht keinen Köder.
So the forger was thinking in German.
Clearly. A native English speaker would say, it's in the bag, or we've got them. We just don't use fish metaphors that way. It was a huge tell.
And there was another one, right, about Rockefeller calling his allies my friends.
Yes. In English, that's pretty casual. But the forger was clearly thinking of the German word Parteifreunde, party friends. In a German political context, that's a formal term for your colleagues. But in English, it just sounds off. Weirdly unprofessional.
You can almost picture the German bureaucrat sitting there, translating his thoughts directly onto the page.
And once again, the typewriter tells the story.
Right. Nelson Rockefeller. A billionaire.
His letters would have been typed on the best electric typewriters money could buy. Perfect, crisp documents.
And this one.
This was typed on a beat-up, pre-war East German machine. The margins were ragged. The alignment was all over the place. It's like getting an official email from the CEO of Apple written in Comic Sans.
But again, we have to ask, did it work?
Yes. Radio Moscow broadcast the letter in dozens of languages. And if you're a citizen in, say, Egypt, and you hear the Americans are calling you a hooked fish, you get angry. You don't ask to see the typewriter analysis. You just react to the insult.
That emotional reaction,
Yeah.
That seems to be the key. Which takes us to the third case, the Alfred Vincent letter, which is maybe the darkest one here.
Yeah, this one was targeting Africa in 1960.
And the context is so important. 1960 was the year of Africa. Independence movements are everywhere. The Congo is exploding. It's a powder keg.
And this forgery was a match thrown right into it.
The letter was supposedly from a Western leader in Central Africa, and the claims are just horrific. It alleged that the British were planning to put African nationalists in concentration camps and use poison wells.
Poison wells, I mean, that's a primal biblical kind of fear. It's designed to trigger an immediate violent response. You don't debate it, you attack. It's a grenade thrown into a room full of gasoline.
But there was a signature flaw. Literally, in the signature, the letter was signed Alfred Vincent.
Right, with an F-I-N-S-E-N-T.
But the real guy's name was Alfred Vincent.
With a V. I mean, how do you mess that up? It seems like such a rookie mistake.
It does, but it's actually a fascinating piece of forensic linguistics. It supports that whole assembly line theory.
The game of telephone.
Exactly. The CIA analysts figure the original order came from Moscow, written in Cyrillic. Now, Russian doesn't really have a clean V sound like English does.
Okay, so it starts in Russian. Then that instruction gets sent to an operative, maybe in the Middle East, to be prepped for Africa. When you transliterate Vincent into Arabic and then back into English or French, the phonetics can shift. In many dialects, the V sound becomes an F sound. Fa instead of va.
So the F in Vincent is basically a fingerprint.
It's a linguistic isotope. It proves the document didn't come from a British office in Africa. It traveled through a Soviet Arab nationalist workshop. It's a mistake only a non-native speaker moving between alphabets would make.
That's wild. It shows how global this whole operation really was.
It was a symphony. The KGB was the conductor, but all these smaller agencies were playing the instruments.
Speaking of dedication, the last case, České slovo. This wasn't just a letter. This was a whole other level.
České slovo was a real newspaper for Czech refugees in the West. It was their lifeline to their community.
So what did the intelligence services do?
They didn't just plant a story. They forged an entire issue of the newspaper, made it look exactly like the real thing. Same layout, same font, everything.
But they changed the content.
They flipped it completely. Instead of supporting refugees, the articles were all anti-West propaganda. Things like, the West is corrupt, go home to communism.
And how did they even get it to people? This is the heist movie part.
That's the kicker. Czech intelligence burglarized the newspaper's real offices to steal the mailing list. They got the name and address of every single subscriber.
And then mailed the fake paper to them.
Yes. Imagine getting your morning paper, sitting down with your coffee, and the paper you trust is telling you your entire life's choice to flee was a mistake. It is gaslighting on an industrial scale.
It's designed to break your spirit, to isolate you.
Exactly. An isolated refugee is an easier target.
So when we look at all of this, the pilots, the hooked fish, the poison wells, the fake newspaper, what does it mean for us today? We don't use typewriters.
We don't. But if you strip away the technology, the psychology is identical. The software of the human brain hasn't had an update.
How so?
Well, think about the hooked fish. It was designed to confirm a bias. Think about these psychoneurotic pilots, designed to create fear. These are the exact same triggers used in modern disinformation.
You mean fake news?
I do. This CIA study is basically the Dead Sea Scrolls of fake news. The tools are different now. It's a bot farm or a deepfake video instead of a clunky typewriter, but the goal is identical.
It's not just to deceive.
No! It's to incite rage. It's to bypass your critical thinking by hitting you directly in the emotions. If a headline makes you furious, your brain shuts down the part that asks, is this true? And just activates the part that says, I knew it.
And the surfacing technique, laundering the lie through small papers, that's just social media now.
It's the same cycle, but at the speed of light. A random account posts something, a blog picks it up, an aggregator quotes the blog, and suddenly it's trending. The Bombay Blitz is now a viral post.
That's a sobering thought. We like to think we're so much more savvy now, but we're falling for the exact same tricks.
We're human.
So what's the takeaway? Beyond just don't trust everything you read.
I think the takeaway is to look for the broken typewriter in the logic. When you see something that seems a little too perfect, a quote that's just too villainous, a statistic that's just too scary, pause.
Look for the internal zone terminology. Look for the misspelled Vincent signature.
Exactly. Ask yourself, who benefits if I believe this? And more importantly, who benefits if I get angry about this and share it?
It's about being your own forensic analyst.
It is. Don't be the hooked fish.
The hooked fish needs no bait. I think that line is going to stick with me for a long time. It's incredible how a document from 60 years ago can feel like it's describing my social media feed this morning.
History doesn't repeat, but it sure does rhyme.
On that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive. Next time you see a headline that makes your blood boil, Just remember the hooked fish and wonder who might have typed it and why. Thanks for listening.